Giving all glory and honor to the mighty Yahweh. I understand this is going to go over a lot of people's heads. This right here is something that is a little complex for the average person. I do not. This is really because, as if you all know me as Unity Ghost, or know me as Nathaniah, sometimes I'm inspired to tell you some things I think you don't know. So let's get into it. What is suretyship? You're born free, but when your mother signs a birth certificate, you become surety. Now, what does the scripture say about surety? We go in here, we see, my son, if you have put up surety for your neighbor, if you have strike hands and pledge with a stranger, and it continues right here. But in fact, let's look at it. You know what I'm saying? If you do that with a stranger, trapped by what you said and ensnared by the words of your mouth. So that will be considered an implied contract, but we're going to continue. A man lack judgment strikes hand and pledge and puts up surety or security for his neighbor. Take the garment of him who posts security for a stranger. Get collateral if it is for a foreigner. All right. Now, when I mean surety, what am I talking about? I'm talking about your name in all capital letters. On your birth certificate, on your social security card, on your credit card, debit card, on your bills, anything that's dealing with commerce, commercial, you are dealing with suretyship, especially in regards to your name. Now, what do I mean by suretyship? Your name in all capital letters is not you. It's actually a business. It's a trust. It can be a DBA or it can be a LLC, but it's something that's dead. And you're not supposed to be surety for a dead entity. And what is suretyship? Well, let's look at this a little bit. We have the legal definition of surety right here. Someone who assumes direct liability for another's obligation. So let's say you go into court and they have your name in all capital letters, but you know you're innocent. If you sign your name as you being that all capital name, then you have committed suretyship. You have did some part of joiner. Financial creditors may require the debtor to find a surety, who then signs the loan agreement along with the debtor. Although similar to a grantor, a financial surety liability arises as soon as the agreed is closed. So what is this talking about? This is talking about suretyship in the legal sense, in the legalese sense, where you assume liability. That is something that's negative. Understand the whole definition of suretyship is that you assume a debt or you assume the liable part. You're liable for it. What I am saying is, yes, you have to have your all caps name, but you have to be a representative of your name because that's not you. But if this would just reach one person, here goes the Hebrew definition. We went to the legal definition of surety, but now we're going to go to the Hebrew definition. Right here, engage, mortgage, to occupy, give pledge, undertake, to braid, intermix. The very important one is intermix. Because what happens is when you sign your signature without distinguishing you from the strawman, you become the strawman. The strawman is dead. You become a dead entity, a legal fiction, something that's not alive. And that's why you become abused in the court. But let me continue. Here are engage, meddle, mingle, mortgage. So what does it mean by mingling? You are taking on a debt of another entity. You are alive. You're a flesh and blood human being. But when you get a name with all capital letters, That's dealing with a legal fiction or a business. But let's get deeper into this. Right here, we're talking about in the private. Right here is a document that kind of explains what a legal fiction is. So it says right here, you are indoctrinated to act in the role of a legal person, which is an artificial creation of the state and a debtor serving as surety for the corporate debt of your, it's all caps. An artificial legal person is dead and under the Foreign Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction. Now, there's many different types of jurisdiction. Maritime jurisdiction is law of the water. Got the law of the land, being common law. But in maritime jurisdiction, let's just say they don't play by the same rules. And one thing about maritime jurisdiction is they cannot deal with a human being, with a flesh and blood person. So they must deal with your name in all capital letters. If you go into court, there's no way that you can tell them to put your name in lowercase, because they're dealing with your trust account, your name in all capital letters. Regardless if you pay the court or not, they're going to get money out of your name because it's a business. Okay. International law of the sea. On the contrary, you are born into your own sovereign estate. All right. Now, a legal person, an actor, or government, banks, all corporate entities need to contract with other legal persons, actors, or extract their commercial energy. Now, what does this mean? This means that a corporation can't contract with a human being. They must contract with your corporation. And you all have one. Your name in all capital letters is your corporation. If you have a Social Security, if you have a birth certificate, that all cap name is your corporation. Say right here, these legal actors make the presumption that you are also acting in the role of a legal person in a legal fiction commerce, which is why they are seeking to contract performance. They always want the name and often the creation date of the person to establish joinder. They need a person because there's absolutely no way they can contract directly with a living man or woman. They need a man or woman to consent to take responsibility in a matter of the person, unknowingly or knowingly, which is the joiner. So what happens when you sign paperwork? And I don't suggest you sign anything, especially in jail, but you don't sign anything without having an understanding of it. So when you go into court, why do they want you to sign something? Your signature is very important. You don't put your signature on everything. You don't put, they have people always putting their signatures on when they come into different jobs and things. Your signature is very important. But they want you to sign the court docket because they want you to do a joiner with that legal deity, that entity. The living name is mirrored by the registration of the artificial legal person on the birth certificate. All right. And estate trust is formed, such as Mr. John Doe Trust. Any living man or woman unknowingly in joiner to such an artificial legal person blindly takes responsibility for the alleged debts of the trust as its trustee. Whereas an aware living man or woman can separate themselves from the legal fiction and become rightful controlling agent, beneficiary, executor. Now right here, we're talking about, and see, this is one thing about Israelites. They don't know anything, but barely, they do not teach. I can tell you that much. They do not teach about the law of the land. They think of it as inferior, but they consistently deal with suretyship. I was listening to a moray, and he was talking about how, if they don't let him not work on the Sabbath, he's going to get a lawyer. Showing me he cannot represent himself. That means in the eyes of the law, you are incompetent. And yes, most people are considered incompetent. You get a lawyer for certain reasons. But even when you get a lawyer, you establish your competence and you tell him what to file. Well, you don't get one at all. So legal persons will attempt to engage a person by posting letters by phone or on the highway, or to make and enforce a contract, misrepresenting a living man or woman as a fictional person, causing unwittingly joiner as the crime of personage that is perpetuated. By barratry. The crime of bringing false claims in court, the term barratry appropriately comes from the Bar Association. Attempted joiner by any legal persons acting in a crime involving deceit. So right here, what we're seeing is, we're seeing that whenever you sign something in a court, especially admiralty court, which is most of the courts that we deal with, especially on the lower level, you are saying that you are that name on that paper. You will not be treated well. That's why most people believe they have to get a lawyer, because without a lawyer, without paying a lawyer all this money, you can't even speak. They consider it fraud for a living man to speak in the court. Now you can put in documentation, but you trying to represent your straw and saying you are the straw, that's fraud. But we can go deeper into that. Right here, there's many different things right here that's very important. If you not wish to consent to their contract offer, you must rebut the presumption that you are acting in the role of a fictitious legal person. It's the first thing you do. You're not the straw man, but you have to prove you're not the straw man. You have to actually grab a hold of the straw. You are never obligated to answer questions or to provide government issued ID. Truly, to uphold your government of the people, it is not your duty to answer questions. It is your duty to ask questions. You have the right to know who is making a claim against you, the right to know who is the injured party, the right to conditionally accept any claim against you upon verification, the right to reserve your rights without prejudice, and hereafter the right to remain silent and to avoid self-incrimination. Now, what is this saying right here? This is the basics. This is some of the basics that you have a right to do. You need to know your rights. Most people do not know their rights. Right here, it says you have a right to know who is making a claim against you. When you go to traffic court and a police officer pulls you over for traffic ticket, he is working for the state. But in any court case, there must be an injured party or a claimant, someone claiming that you did did some type of damages to him. The police officer knows you haven't done any damages, so he cannot be an injured party. The police officer can't be an injured party, and he can't be a claimant because he works for the state, and the state is the one that is presiding over the court case. So the police officer that pulled you over, he's just working commerce, and he wants you to sign the ticket, and he wants you to go to court and plead. But you have a right to ask, well, who did I injure? And then you have a right to say, well, who's the claimant? Because if the police officer comes up and says that you have injured me, that's complete fraud. None of them can come up and say that you did something to the officer, injured his property or his person. And because you didn't injure anything, he cannot be the plaintiff. So the police officer that pulls you over cannot be the plaintiff at all. But you have a right to ask, who is the claimant? Who is the injured party? Who is going against me? Most people don't know that. There has to be an injured party. So we talk about the difference between public and private. One of the most important things that anyone should do is get a trust. That's how you establish your privacy. Because a trust is like a will. When you have a will and it's written correctly, probate cannot get involved. The court cannot get involved. It's a private matter. But when you don't have a will, what happens? It goes into probate. Now, public and private. When you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with controversy. You're dealing with the court. You're dealing with controversy between peoples. and people, the public. When private, you have a right to your privacy. You have to know your rights, and the Constitution is not. You're not a party to the Constitution. It's there to protect you from the government. But right here, we're seeing in the private. Now they have legal fictions and they have lawful, legal and lawful. The difference between legal and lawful. This is something you really need to know. Now, something can be illegal until you sign a contract. Once you sign a contract, it becomes legal. It may be unlawful, but if you sign a contract and you do it, it becomes legal. Because you sign, saying that you will allow it. Lawful stands on its own. It stands as what it is. But legal, like he said, slavery was legal. All right. Let's continue though. Now we talk about dead or alive, artificial and natural. Okay. What does it say right here? Dead legal right here. When you register something, what does register mean in a legal sense? It means that you've given up the original title. Give you two perfect examples. And that's why you go to the county recorder and you record it. You don't register. Like you say, you register your marriage license, you register your car. You've given up the actual title to it. You give up the actual title to the car. So that the state actually owns it. So that's why they always tax, and then you don't do right. They take it. They have the original title. Same thing with the deed of your house. You register your deed. Same thing with your birth certificate. You register the certificate of live birth, and they've given you a birth certificate. Two totally different documents. Certificate of live birth has the signatures on it, dates, addresses. But the birth certificate just has a couple of things because you have registered the original deed. So it's good to get the original deeds and put them in your trust. All right. So we see the difference between dead and alive. Now, one thing I want to show you in the bottom, the difference between a signature and an autograph. All right. A signature is for dead entities and an autograph is for alive entities. Why do we say that? Because when you make an autograph, you establish that you're alive and you're not dead. Now, of course, I know that this is going to be ignored, but when you talk about suretyship, we talk about the wisdom and the law. The Almighty tells us not to be surety. And that means that we need to know that when we sign our signature, we are not being surety for a dead entity, for your name in all capital letters. How do you know you're surety for a dead? These are legal terms. Today we're dealing with biblical terms, and we have the Moore Science Temple that, will go into law, but the Israelites won't. I know a lot of them that do, but they will not teach it to the masses. They will not teach the law to the masses. But this is suretyship. Now, what's the difference between having a signature and having an autograph? One thing about having an autograph, if I can find one thing about having an autograph right here, you get you something like this and you want it in red too, because you want to establish that you are a living being. When you sign your signature, you become suretyship for the all capital name that's on the court docket. You become surety. You are not that entity. When we get a bill in the mail of the electric bill and you look at your name, it's in all capital letters. Why? Because it's already paid for. The bill is really already paid for through that name that was registered with the Treasury Department, and it's sold on the stock. Your name in all capital letters is sold on the stock. So when you sign something, you become surety for that all capital name. So we're talking about suretyship. And when you sign, and say you are that all capital name, they abuse you in court. You don't know any better. But see, that's the difference between having a signature and having an autograph. Because an autograph, when you talk about an autograph, you're talking about something where you have established that you are a living being and you're not that business. Remember, you can go on the Secretary of State website right now, pay $40 and get a business in your name in all capital letters. I'm telling you, you have your whole name in all capital letters. It's something called a DBA, or doing business as. And, you know, you can also have a trust, or you can have an LLC in your name. Okay. But remember, your name in all capitals is a business. It is not you per se, the flesh and blood person. But when you sign something, you have something called a joiner, a legal term called a joiner, meaning you are being surety, or you are joining in with that legal deity, with that legal entity, and committing suretyship. Even when people are about to go to jail, they have a body attachment. And one thing about indictments, if you look at an indictment, it's written the same way of articles of incorporation when you're trying to make a business. It's written in the same way because it is business. But when you're dealing with the courts, even if you're about to go to jail, if you can separate yourself from the straw, then you have a chance of not going to jail. You have a chance. Now, the reason I bring up this is because the judge is the trustee to your all caps name. Okay. Now, in a trust, they have three different parts. They have a grantor, who's the creator of the trust. They have the trustee, who's the controller, but he does not own it. And he has the beneficiaries. Three parts of a trust. The judge, we all have a public trust. Everyone talks about how we have millions of dollars in our birth certificate. That's true. That's true. It's something called accepted for value. If you look up accepted for value stamp, they're selling them online for $22. If you're able to get your account, you're able to charge off debt. That's just a fact. And guess what? It's the debt of your straw man, your all capital name. A lot of times people say, oh, well, that's just nonsense. My name in all capital. When they send me a bill, when I see my credit card and it's all caps, when I see my debit card, when I see anything dealing with monetary value of money and commerce, and my name is in all capital letters, that's just a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. All right. Now, right here, like I said, an autograph is establishing you're alive. That's why you get one of these, your fingerprint, boom, you hit the fingerprint over your signature to let them know you are a living being. And you don't do a joiner. You don't become surety for that all caps name. When you do, but there's different ways of establishing that. So a natural man or woman may stand upon their inalienable rights, being entitled to carry on their private business in their own way. Their power to contract is unlimited. They owe no duty to the state or the neighbors to divulge their business, nor to open their doors to investigation as far as it may be self-incriminating. Right here, and we see this because when you have a trust, all you have to do is put what they call a memorandum of trust. That's one way of calling it, a memorandum of trust or a trust certificate, because your trust is private. You know, have you ever heard of trust fund, baby? When you get a trust, you don't need to that's your private. And that's why everyone should always have a trust. The only time people get a trust is when they die, and it's a will. But you should always have a trust, because that's your private side. That's the side where the government can't touch. People put their house in their trust so that they will not get taxed. People put their car in their trust to get it out of the jurisdiction of the court. And why do they put their car in the trust? Because when you register something, you're giving up the title to the car. You're giving them the title, and they're giving you a certificate of the title, meaning they have it. You're just using it. All right. Now, let me read this. Whereas the corporation is a creature of the state, it is presumed to be incorporated for the benefit of the state. It receives certain public privileges and franchises, holding them subject to the statutes of the state and the limitation of its charter. Its privileges are only preserved while it obeys the statutes of its creation. There is a reserved right in the legislature to investigate its contracts to determine if it exceeds the limitation of powers. Okay, so right here, we're talking about the legal entity, your name in all caps. All right. But I'm going to, and like I said, you can all join Fighting for Fatherhood. I posted this this whole document on there. It's about 300 something pages. Well, no, this one right here is not 300. This one is about 20 something. But let me just show something real quick. Okay. Now we got the police officer oath. Okay. We got to do this. Let me go to right here. All right. How to make an autograph. Now, an autograph is different than a signature. Okay. As you can see right here, he stamped his fingerprint to prove that he was a living person, and he put all rights reserved without prejudice, non-assumptive. This is the reason, and this is what I was talking about. How to make an autograph. In proper English, lawful given name title separated from the shared family name, punctuated as a fact, but may be interpreted as a legal person created by the state. So right here, they're trying to separate this, because when you have the first and last name, a last name really talk about dealing with corporate entities. So you have to, like I said, in a legal definition, it gets real because it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn. So when I'm saying this stuff, it may be going on some people's head, but right here we see they put all rights reserved up under the name. All rights reserved without prejudice. Why? Because they don't want to be surety when they sign something. You become surety for the all caps name. Right here, principal, creditor, and grantor. Sovereign. All right. Now, so I just wanted to come on here real quick to talk about suretyship. Because I'm going to read one proverb before I get out of here. Proverbs 17. And we'll start at verse 18. A man void of understanding strike hands to become surety in the presence of his friend. Oh, that's one. Let me go. I'm gonna do one more. Right here, this is verse 1. And I'm gonna read this. And I'm gonna get out of here. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself. When thou art come into the hand of thy friend, go, humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thy eyes, nor slumber to thy eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways, and be wise. So the last one was for me. The first five, I definitely need to get up off of here. But that first five was talking about suretyship. And we become surety in many different ways. When we sign things, I was talking to a gentleman. Well, no, I was listening to a gentleman. And he was telling me how when he was in jail, they were explaining to him what they were about to do, give him a shot. And then they wanted him to sign a paper. But when he didn't sign that paper, they didn't give him the shot. And it was another time where they tried to use threat and coercion to take his blood. So they said, if you don't do it, we're going to strap you. You don't sign this paper and do this, we're going to strap you down to the chair and do it. And he said, listen, I'm not combative. So if you're going to take it, you can take it. But, and I won't fight you, but I would not give you consent to take my blood. There will not be any consent.